Hello, and welcome back to Node Astrology. Today we have a chart reading for Rebecca, and we begin in Kansas City, Kansas in 1996 at 8:32 in the morning on the 19th of April. That puts her as a 29-degree Aries sun in the 12th house and as a Gemini rising. There are a couple of aspects that jump out at me immediately, and that is the intercepted signs of Taurus and Scorpio. You notice there's no house that starts or begins or ends or whatever in either Taurus or Scorpio. I have recently learned that this is rather common. Most of the other signs are not so much. I myself have Cancer and Capricorn, and I actually do know some other folks. At least one other person that has that, and also another that has Aries and Libra intercepted. But this is the most common, so I'm definitely going to go into this and how to work on, opening up those interceptions, and as well as going into Saturn returns. I've talked about that a little bit in other readings, but not really gone into it that much. I'm going to be showing you all three of Rebecca's Saturn return hits, right? It's going to come into Aries and then, retrograde back over it, back into Pisces, and then move back forward again. At the same time, there's also other aspects going on with her that are going to give that some context and for her, and also so you guys can possibly understand what goes on with a triple hit on any slower moving planet and how that can possibly manifest in your life. So we begin with Gemini, right? Anyone that's a Gemini rising is being the truest self they possibly can be when they push forward in life. There's lots of interesting things that can happen or why people choose to do these things or whatever, but I like to look at an astrological chart as a blueprint for how to live and not necessarily how you're going to live. So all the subjective experiences that have, culminated in, who Rebecca is and who she chooses to be moving forward will all be based on this chart, overall. And when she starts things new or when new things come to her, they typically come in the form of information or some sort of very close tied mental partnership, right? Because Gemini is definitely the mind, right? It's as far as the houses are concerned, it would be the foundation of the third house, which is communication also, right? I don't know if she has any siblings. Looking here, I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I haven't talked to her about that. The falling, or not necessarily falling, but one thing that people tend to confuse with Gemini or tend to fall into, that's a better way to put that, is they associate wherever Gemini is in their chart with themselves and somebody else, right? So me and my pet, me and one of my children, me and my spouse, me and my best friend, me and my workmate, right? Those things are true, but it's not the entire truth of Gemini. The largest truth of Gemini that's missed is it is our inner self, right? The true self that we have inside that everybody doesn't get to see, right? But Rebecca projects that forward, right? That 29 degrees Aries in the 12th house is she's a person who offers her life up to, humanity, right? She's a sacrificial person, and that is a beautiful thing to be. And therefore, what she does is she projects out, right? And people can also see when she's not wearing a mask, right? It's, there's an old acronym, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. So in most places with her, that's definitely what you do, right? And with Venus there in the first house, people can see instantly how she feels. They know whether she feels good or whether she's not feeling good, how her relationships are being balanced and whether they're being balanced or not, and how well she's balanced. And that might be pretty rough. They're not seeing her emotions, but they're just seeing how she feels. And I know that may not sound like a different thing, but it definitely is. She might also discover that as she communicates, or as she starts these new communications with people or situations, that when she's speaking, there are things that have been filtering and solidifying in her mind that she may not have been aware of about her emotions and things. And I know I'm kind of moving backwards into the 12th house here with her Mercury and Moon, but it's definitely very important. The mechanism of Venus in anybody's chart is very important because that's what we're all trying to build, right? We're all trying to build a better aesthetic life. We're all trying to build relationships that make us feel better. And those are the two realms that Venus is very powerful in, right? In Taurus, the ruler of values and of, steadily moving forward, and also the house of Libra, relationships and balance and justice. Okay, so let's move on to the second house, which starts at 0 degrees Cancer here, and that is house of values, right? That's how we value material security and how we value ourselves and what our skills are and what we value in other people. And this can obviously be a wide range of things, right? Especially with this house being ruled by the moon, and in a strange way, her moon is ruled by Mars, and I will definitely get into that as I roll into the 12th house. So she is skilled at emotions. She's skilled at caring for people and always seeks that, right? All the aspects in everybody's chart is about transmit and receive. These are also things that she wants to pull in, right? These are all of our chart placements, and everything about us is I don't necessarily want to use the word struggle, but it's what we're working on in this life, right? So the opposite, or one step backwards from anywhere our chart is things that we've already mastered, and any of these placements are things that we are training ourselves to look at, or training ourselves to look forward to, or training ourselves to use, right? We're given these tools, and it's how we use them is how we move forward. And one of the powerful tools she has is obviously communication, and making people feel good with that communication and with that knowing from her inner self. And now we're moving into a realm of emotion. She's very good at it, and it may have taken her some time to get to that point, but it is definitely a skill. It may take some time and some years to develop this skill, and with any skill, it's going to improve as you work on it. But knowing what our skills and abilities are is something that's very powerful, and yet again, it's another reason why I do these readings for people. Okay, so let's move on to the third house. Third house begins also in Cancer, and this has Lilith here. Lilith in Cancer is very powerful. I would say to a point where Lilith might almost be at home in Cancer, even though she is a very powerful, she's the feminine radical in anybody's chart, right? Uranus is the masculine radical. He will break things and shoot lightning bolts up things, and he will actually destroy things. Lilith, she can and she will, but she can also just walk away, right? She will look at something and say, nope, not doing it that way. That's not how I'm going to do this. But she might also be a wild feminine, as nature does. If you park your car too close to the woods for too long, nature will eat the car. And that is what Lilith will do. If you park something too close to her and she's not comfortable with it, she will either spit it out or she will engulf it. She will eat it. So, in addition, Lilith can actually go back and forth between, being all in or all out. There's also a huge amount of liberation in Lilith, right? And in Cancer here, we have the mind of Rebecca deciding that she's going to be a mother in a new way, right? In a non-traditional way, whether it's actual children or whether it's, emotional children or just taking care of really anybody, right? She's going to do it in her way because there was probably some kind of shakeup in the home. And let's see. So with a 12th house Aries sun and a 4th house Leo, I would definitely say so. Something else that you guys can actually see by looking at the chart is with the 12th and the 6th house taking up so much space, right? More than 30 degrees. There are other parts in the chart that are less than 30 degrees, right? So she's got 2 houses that are Cancer and 2 that are Capricorn. And there are definite ways to get through that, and it is complex, and I'll get to that when I moved into her 2nd house, or move into her 6th house and start sorting that out, right? So let's go into the 4th house. This is home. This is where we all feel emotionally supported, whether it's through other people or through a physical space or through, an experience that we have or that we create for ourselves, right? With her 4th house being in Leo, this is needing to be her own emotional anchor, right? Her own emotional safety, where she feels that she can create anywhere, right? What she creates is home for her. There's probably a bit of identification with the creations. Again, the Gemini rising and people's associations with the things that are close to them. But knowing that what you create is of you, but is not you, right? It is an external thing. But what she creates is from, her self-identity. It is from that space of, youthful, aggression, I suppose, in that Aries sign at 29 degrees. And let's move on to the 5th house now. 5th house being those creation things, being entertainment and fun and all of the things that everybody considers life, right? The cool stuff, right? Where we're entertaining people and they're entertaining us. And this is a lot of times also our pets, if they are our fur babies or not. And this is controlled by Mercury, right? This is like a subconscious kind of thing for her because it is 12th house, or it's a bit of a suppressed thing. So she may have trouble with creations or with creating. And I'm kind of seeing a bit of a theme here. With Chiron in Libra and also with the North Node there is Chiron is the wounded healer, right? He is the wound that never heals, but there's also a powerful ability that we all have to heal others through that, right? We have to make direct action and direct communication. And I think this is definitely about direct communication, being it's in a house that's ruled by Mercury, and Libra is an air sign, right? So we're still talking about communication. But we're also talking about faster changes. We might be talking about working with the hands or working in parallel with people. Not necessarily in parallel, but working in balance with ourselves, right? Because Virgo is the foundations of the 6th house, right? The daily work that we do, the improvement of whatever it is we're doing, right? So she wants to improve her creations, on a steady basis all the time. And there's a wounding there about the relationship with them. But she knows that she has to keep working on that relationship. The North Node of the Moon is an obsession point, right? In the chart. There are other obsession points, but this is one of the big ones. She knows that she needs to go after these, relationships. And as an Aries, Aries are very, they go after things in a very direct way, right? She goes after communication in a very direct way. She's very passionate about that. That's what that Venus is there in the 1st. And this is translating here into her creations, right? So you can see the tie in there. Okay. So moving on to the 6th house. And I'm seeing that Venus is definitely one of these spoken about, because here we are in a house that is ruled partially by Venus. And this is how the interceptions are going to work. Any sign that is inside an intercepted house is ruled by both of those signs, both of those planet rulers, right? So the sixth house, beginning in Libra, is ruled by Venus. That's in her first house in Gemini, right? But it's also ruled by Mars and Scorpio Mars and Pluto, because Scorpio is inside that sixth house, right? Nothing starts or stops in there. So we're looking at a little bit of a complex thing here. We're looking at Venus in Gemini, which is a fast change, right? It's definitely fast because we're dealing with two air signs. And we're also dealing with a Mars that's in Aries, but it's ruled by Pisces, and a Pluto that's in Sagittarius, which is actually in the correct house here. So there is a power and a control and probably a fear element about this day, about her daily life, and it may definitely be affecting her friends and or her philosophies on things, right? With Pluto in Sagittarius, there is a knowing of that generation that they know that no matter what their experience is, that things might end, right? But if they put all of their experience on the line, if they put all of their travel or all of their beliefs on the line, Pluto will immediately give them a reward when they plunge through that veil. When they pierce through it, he will immediately rebirth them, right? We might be scorched and scarred, and we might be like, Khaleesi coming out of the fire with no hair, with almost no followers left. However, when you do come out of the fire, you have baby dragons in your hands, right? That's always the case with Pluto. Always. He will always rebirth you if you push hard enough. But you have to be willing to go all in with him, right? You have to be willing to put whatever it is on the line. And in Sag, there is a belief element in there, right? It's all of the things. It's all the expansions, right? With Mars, there is more of, with her Mars, there's more of a belief element, even though it is 11th house, and it is that, that Aquarius vibe, even though it's very powerful and direct, there's a lot going on with it, right? So in a strange way, it might be easier for her to open up by letting go, right? There's a letting go element to that Mars to help, pull her daily life in, but plunging into, things for the sake of experience might also be very useful for her. It could be very powerful. And as an Aries, she might just do that in a natural way and know that she might lose some friends, but if the ones that she loses ain't worth it, and if certain belief structures of hers, if they break or if they spin on a dime and go in another direction, she might be okay with that too, right? So there's all of these things come into play. With the South Node currently in Scorpio, this is definitely giving Rebecca another nod and letting her know that, hey, this is stuff that needs to be done. This is how I need to continue on with my life. This is what needs to be the foundation of my life, right? And with anything Scorpio, there is a huge element of trust, right? Trusting ourselves, trusting other people, trusting value, trusting improvement, whatever it is that Scorpio trusts, right? Whatever it gets into. And in the sixth house, this is about daily life, trusting herself, trusting her balance, her inner balance, and trusting her relationships to improve her, right? And trusting the actual improvement of it. Is this thing improving? Oh my God, here's a breakthrough moment. Boom, Pluto experience, pow, right? I'm breaking through. And then that's going to, obviously, you can see the little blue lines there. It's going to affect her Saturn, which is about her friends and her, a little bit of her career kind of, I refer to that as backfeeding, moving backwards there. And also her philosophies. So let's move on to seventh house, which is relationships, like all relationships, whether they're business or family or whatever. This is, also about, legal matters if they happen in life. And this is also marriage. sometimes people with Sagittarius placements, and even though this is a house that's set in Sag here and not necessarily a placement itself, but Aries are known to go after things for the experience, right? They're like, okay, I see this thing, I'm gonna go after this thing, right? And for a Gemini rising, she is definitely going after relationships for the experience. And she wants experience in that realm. She wants to expand herself through that, right? And her expanding her beliefs, those beliefs are about relationship. And that's also helping her fifth house, her creation. It's also helping her daily life, through getting that experience, through getting that expansion, or through that long distance travel. And I know long distance travel is rough on everybody since 2020, but it can still be done. Moving into the 8th house, actually, let's back up a little bit. Let's stay in the 7th. The 7th house ruler is Jupiter, and it is in Capricorn, right? So when she is building these relationships, she wants to build them in a way that will increase legacy, right? She wants to make sure they're going to stay, that they are, the beginnings of what she would consider the ancestors, and she wants to be the ancestors, right? Especially with a 12th house sun, there is a tie to that, and she might feel like she even might have a lot of past life connections with people, right? Because that's also what Pluto is. Pluto will indicate, past life things. And Sagittarius here in the 7th with Jupiter in the 8th in Capricorn might actually be that. There might be a lot of, oh, I knew you in another life kind of situation. They'd be amusing. I'd like to get some feedback from Rebecca on that, or anybody else's thoughts on that. So now let's go on to the 8th house. 8th house is how we rebirth ourselves. It's how deep we go with people. It's these transformational experiences that we have. And it is, for her, it is about legacy. It is about foundation. It is about structure. It is about finances. It is definitely about this is the culmination of the things that she was doing in the 2nd house. This is what her values will give her back, right? So if you go into Taurus, you will get Scorpio out of it, and the other way around, right? And this is, Cancer, Capricorn axis. With Jupiter here, there is lots of foundation work going on. There's lots of transformation through that. There may be, money issues, especially with Saturn in a house that's owned by Pisces and with being a 12th house sun. So a letting go of these things might be, part of it, especially with, like I said, Saturn being in that 11th house. So this might be things about the general collective of humanity, but it also might be friends, older friends, possibly friends in the church, friends in the spiritual community. And, Jupiter opens doors. He opens lots of doors sometimes. And as he's direct here, he's going to open a lot of doors. And there's also luck there too, right? That's another aspect of Jupiter. He is luck. So when you go into those spaces where he is, he might test you a little bit. He's not going to take anything away from you, but he might test you a little bit. You're like, okay, did you actually deserve this? Did you work for it a little bit? Okay, here you go, right? He's not like Daddy Saturn, who is going to make you work for something for 30 years before he gives it to you. And then when you get it, you go like, oh, is this what I was working on? Jupiter's going to move a lot faster than that. He's going to expand things anywhere he goes, right? So with the current, Pluto transit, actually the Pluto transit currently is in her 9th house. So let's go ahead into that, right? And let me pull this up. All right, so normally I don't go into a lot of transit stuff in people's birth charts, but there's a lot going on here, and I'm going to be pulling up a lot of other stuff and going into things, right? So we are in a current Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. This is the last transit that any of us are going to have in Capricorn, short of eclipses, right? And Venus and Mars and everything else like that. But this is the last of the powerful eclipses for any of our lifetimes, because Pluto takes around 250 years to move through the zodiac, and when he moves into Aquarius fully in 2024, he's not coming back forever. He's going to keep moving forward. He's going to dip back in and into like, 29 degrees and then roll back into Aquarius. But for now, he is in Capricorn and he's staying here for a minute. So he is 1 degree off of her Neptune. So there is, and in the ninth house, let me go back to that real quick. The ninth house is about expansion. It is about belief. It is about spirituality. It is about long distance travel. It's about higher learning. It's about, the meaning of life. And for each of us, it's obviously going to be different, right? My meaning is definitely different than Rebecca's meaning or anybody else's meaning for themselves, much less what they think the meaning for the collective of humanity is, right? And that's 11th house. We can get into that later. But with Pluto being on her Neptune in the ninth house, there may be some substance control issues here, right? Because Neptune can bring in issues with connecting to source, right? When I imbibe or I am chemically altered in certain ways, I'm always thinking about God. I always think about divinity. I want to talk about really super deep things. I want to talk about, aliens and the Mayans and that kind of, I always want to talk about that stuff. Well, that's because I'm in the 12th house and mine's in Sag, and that's what I want to do, right? In the ninth house, in structure here, in Capricorn, and with Pluto leaning on it, there may have been some impulse control, trouble. She's 29 degrees Aries, and in that 12th house, that's also another spot for things of that nature. Like Pisces also deals with not necessarily obsession, but getting lost in the details. There not being details. Pluto is not going to bring you details. He's going to bring you transformation, right? So there might be some transformation through maybe, let's say, sacred medicines here, or possibly not. There may be other things going on here too, because there can be a lot of stuff, right? Sometimes Saturn is Saturn, and sometimes he is an older person to you. Sometimes, in Rebecca's case, in Aries, she might be, feeling like she's a child in, an older person's body, always has felt like that, or an older person in a child's body, so it might flip-flop, might be a bit of a singularity for her. So sometimes a sign or a house is just that, and sometimes it's a person or a thing or an event that keeps happening, right? So there might be some, there's definitely some learning and some transformation going on here about her divine mission and about how she feels about herself in that divine mission. All right. And also here we have Uranus in the ninth house in Aquarius. This is where he wants to be. Uranus is definitely at home in Aquarius. He's the ruler of this. And we're also dealing with Saturn here again, right? And because Saturn is in rulership in Capricorn as well as Aquarius. So he is in her 8th, 9th, and 10th house, right? And definitely in her 11th because he's there, but that's being ruled by Pisces. So if she did go to college, I'm not sure if she has or not, it may not be until later in life, right? It may not be until, 30. And with Neptune and Uranus there, it may be online, right? Because we all know the shape of the world now. We know how much more things are online. You can't even barely order a pizza now without having to go online, going through an app and all that madness. And there might be some radical changes that she wants to make in those kinds of structures. And it may, again, be, she might feel like she's tapping into something more divine like that. There might be a kind of a Neo kind of aspect here, like seeing the truth beyond the veil, beyond the matrix kind of stuff. And as with any house, they always build on the other ones, right? So the ninth house is held up, or holds up the 10th house, actually. So the 10th house is in Aquarius and continues on into Pisces and is ruled by Uranus and Saturn. So now that we are in the 10th house and we are in a house that is talking about Saturn, and even though Saturn is in her 11th house, let's take a little bit of a step sideways here and let's talk about transits. More specifically, Saturn returns. So I have mentioned before that sometimes people get 3 passes or 3 hits, right? And this is definitely the case with Rebecca. So in June of 2025, the June 18th, she gets her first 0-degree Saturn hit. Now, Saturn has been moving into that house for some time and moving into that space for some time, but this is the 0-degree, right? This is the actual time where Saturn's at the same place as her birth, right? In addition, Neptune has moved from Pisces and he has moved into Aries also. So there is also there's a bit of a fogginess about this. There's also a feeling of, like something divine has been coming or is coming. And you can see that bold blue line there from Saturn back to Pluto. So again, we are transforming an experience about belief here. And there's also aspect there with Pluto being in between, and actually it's in that retrograde motion that I was talking about before in Aquarius. This is his first retrograde in Aquarius, and he is going to dip back later on, like I said, back into Capricorn and then continue to move forward. But you can see that he's in between that Uranus and that Neptune. So you can see the Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, all of it playing out here, definitely. And with Uranus in Taurus in her 12th house, that's also giving that same kind of feel over again. In addition, the Sun being at 27 degrees of Gemini at the time is only 1 degree off of her part of fortune, right? And I'm sorry, I forgot to go over that when I went into her first house. I'll do that now. Part of fortune is anything that we go into that we get more out of. And for Rebecca, that is her communication, right? That is her projecting out into the world and starting new things. And anytime new things come to her, she always gets more, right? So there's even though it's information, right? She feels like things that are her come to her, right? When she starts new, right? Or it can be worked the other way around. And with the Sun in Gemini, she's very much identifying herself with those things that come in, with those new experiences, right? And Jupiter at the same time is in square to her Saturn in Aries, right? Jupiter's at home in Cancer. That's where he wants to be. Jupiter has a lot of moons. And what has moons? Cancer has moons. It's ruled by the moon. So he is expanding all of the emotions, right? It's big. Something else going on here, we have Mercury in opposition to Jupiter, Mercury in Cancer in opposition to Jupiter in Capricorn. So there is a communicating about those skills, about those taking care of people skills that I talked about earlier, and by way of expanding structure, expanding business, expanding legacy, right? And this is Saturn's realm. This is what he does. He builds legacy. He moves beyond. He is, time. He's the Lord of time here, right? And also the Lord of karma. So whatever you put in, you're going to get out. So this is definitely a powerful time for her. Okay, so here we are with the second hit. Now this is the retrograde motion here. And now you also see that Saturn and Neptune are both in retrograde here. So they have retrograded at the same time. So they're both kind of hanging on that, on that 1 degree Aries spot, so that they're giving her all her money's worth. Now, we're not in that Jupiter square Saturn anymore. Jupiter has moved farther into Cancer, and it's really not that much longer after. You see how much motion there has been there, right? She's also had a Venus conjunction in her first house. I'm not going to go back and look at that. But now Mercury is retrograde in Leo, and he is in opposition to Uranus. So he is thinking about creation, and he is going back over the elements of creation in her mind, and creating herself, as well as the Sun being at 14 degrees of Leo, which is just barely into her 4th house. So this is about home too. This is about feeling whether she is home for herself or not, right? So Uranus is communicating radical changes are necessary in belief structures, and this may actually be about technology too, right? She might be thinking about that. There may have been some kind of snap, around her, or through, getting a lot of times when there are either Aquarius or Uranus transits, or something going on in a square or an opposition, we get a very intense communication now, because everybody's got email and phones and apps and everything else. So she may have gotten a text message from somebody. She may have been getting a series of them. And in the ninth house, this could be about school. This could be about her, could be, it's Capricorn, so it could be about her career. This could actually be about her family. This could be, friends. This could be a number of things, and it may be all of them. But with Leo going on here, she knows it's about her. She knows it's about a creation element to her, and that she's creating something radically new, or she can. And to not bring Pluto up here would be a drastic damage to this reading. So you see there's lots of lines going on, but she's also in a Uranus-Pluto opposition, right? Her Pluto is at 2 degrees of Sag, and Uranus has now broken out of Taurus and has moved into Gemini at this point by the 6th of August 2025, right? Which is really not that far away. It really isn't. A Uranus-Pluto opposition, a lot of times people change careers, right? There may be health aspects, depending on where your Uranus and your Pluto is. And since Pluto's in the 6th house here, and this is Uranus in Gemini, this may be actually something about health, right? Or something about somebody else's health, because it's Sagittarius. It might be an older family member, and that Uranus is in the 12th house here. There may be some loss here, some loss of communication with somebody. It is Gemini, right? And it is the 12th house, and she's known these things for a while, because Uranus is already in her 12th house, and there's a letting go of those communications already. Or there's a knowing that she needs to release the trying to hold on to those radical changes, because they're going to keep coming. Something that has happened since the first hit, and now that we're on the retrograde hit, Mars at 0 degrees of Libra is in opposition to her Saturn, and he's going to, in the next couple of weeks, he's going to move into that 1 degree mark and be in opposition to her Saturn. And as transiting Saturn and transiting Neptune are also in opposition, this is very powerful. She might feel like she's held back, but what she's being held back from is Mars always wants to push forward. He wants to go to war, but if he doesn't have a good plan, he doesn't know where to go. And especially Mars in Libra, you've got the soldier that is being asked to be the judge, and he may not know how to do that, right? So he is being talked to by the king, by the spiritual minister, by the Pope, so to speak, and he's being given direction. Now the king is giving him battle plans, right? Saturn is giving him, okay, here's the long-term plan, soldier. And then when he's done, he talks to the priest, and the priest goes, how do you feel about it? I heard what the king said. You just need to make sure that when you go forward, that that you have divinity on you, that you have been divinely guided here. And here we are in February of 2026, and now Neptune and Saturn are both moving forward. They have stopped their retrograde motion. You can see how much time has passed here. It's been a number of months, and there's lots of changes in the zodiac, right? Jupiter's still in Cancer, right? And Uranus has retrograded back into Taurus, and he's doing other things, and he's obviously going to continue to move forward. So there's going to be that, Uranus-Pluto opposition again, and it's going to take some time, right? But all of these things are always for our betterment, right? We've got Pluto here on top of her Uranus, so there's still radical changes in things. And this, again, I expect this is possibly about her schooling, or what she wants to learn, or how she conceptualizes higher learning, and death and power and control and all of the scary elements of Scorpio, and it is bringing all of these things into her daily life. She knows that these things are daily occurrences now. There's no denying it, right? Because Saturn is Capricorn. In order for things to grow, in order for things to be foundational, sometimes you got to dig a hole, and what you find there is death, right? So Capricorn can bring death, and in the 8th house he may, and there may have been a lot of that in her life also. But with the Neptune there, it's telling her this is the divine order. This is how these things work, right? And as a 12th house sun, there's a subconscious impulsive thing going on, but it is divinely guided, right? We are all divinely guided, but she associates herself with that sort of thing in her life. Also, what's going on here, you see the sun is very close to the north node of the moon, and it is in Pisces. So she knows what her mission is now. She sees it. It's much more clear than it has ever been. And even though her natal north node is in the 5th house, is about creation and being of service and being, having her own balance, right? All of these elements are for us, right? They're not necessarily for other people. Our cup has to be full before we can pour into anybody else's, right? So even if we spent our entire lives on an island with a volleyball, and whatever we name the volleyball, we could do all of these things for ourselves. We wouldn't need other people. Now, we would think about these other things, and there would be events that would happen. A crate might wash up on the beach, or we might dig a hole somewhere for some purpose and find something, and that can be a transformational experience because of what it is, right? So just because we are one of 7 billion people on the planet doesn't mean that all of these experiences and all of these gifts are not for us first, because they are. We are a gift for and to ourselves first, right? And this is possibly what's going on here, right? So this career that is in, Aquarius, it moves into Pisces, and the sun being close to the north node there is reminding her, hey, you do need to let go of some things. You are a person of release. You are a person of magic, right? Because that's what Pisces is. It creates magic. So let me go back into the 10th house here and get away from the charts and transits, and thank you for allowing my rambling here. Okay, so Aquarius being the house ruled and the sign ruled by Saturn and Uranus, right? So the 9th house is propping up that 10th, and the 10th house also be co-ruled by that Saturn in Aries. So there's a directness, right? And there's a bit of youthfulness. So you've got an old man, that's trying to be youthful, and he's got a youthful face. So I expect she's going to be showing the same face to her friends, until every big Saturn transit, right? So whether it's a Saturn return or a square or a trine, or an opposition, but until those things happen, she shows the same face. She has the same, I'm not going to say timeless, but there is a pausing of things. But when those conjunctions and squares and oppositions happen, that's where time's going to catch up. But that's also where experience is going to catch up. It's going to slingshot her forward into those things and be much more vetted in herself and the world, and in any of those structure things that are creating those deep and awesome experiences for her, right? So Neptune and Jupiter ruling that 11th house that kind of is influencing her Saturn, right, is about those peak experiences, is about her beliefs. So this is going with the flow, right? She's known for going with the flow, or maybe connecting and disconnecting, but it's always in a divinely guided sort of way, a long-term pattern. If she disconnects from you, it's because you have shown her that that she can't connect with you anymore, right? Or, it's a pattern of connecting and disconnecting with people. Be careful how you do that, Rebecca. Be careful, because Saturn, whatever you practice, practice makes perfect, well, so to speak, but perfect practice makes perfect, right? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? do things slow, and that becomes smooth, and then smooth becomes fast, always, right? And anytime with Saturn, he will give you exactly what you put in. He will give you exactly what you put in, right? So, and everything from those peak experiences all the way up to that career element, right? So, moving on to 11th house. We've already talked about this a little bit. This is about letting go. This is also about bringing magic, right? This is what the world gives back to Rebecca when she creates, when she works with her hands, when she leans in and creates balance for herself, right? It gives her divine inspiration. It gives her magic. It creates things for her. It bridges gaps that she never thought could bridge. It brings her childhood back to her in a new way, in a more mature way, which is also what Aries can be. It can give her very powerful things, right? And this is the foundation for her. That's the south node of the moon, right? That's that little black symbol there. This is where she stands. This is what she needs to put her feet on. So to say that Rebecca's a late bloomer, definitely, right? Which is a bit strange for an Aries, but given all of the Saturn elements going on here and all the time things, and that, you know, she's got a, you know, an 11th house south node. Oh yeah, for sure. And with, you know, Jupiter and Neptune being in Capricorn, she's got to wait. So that forward motion of creation of balance is going to take some time, and you're getting there, Rebecca. You're getting there every day. Keep letting go. Keep allowing things to be. Keep using your hands. Keep working on yourself. Keep your internal balance, right? Know what feels good and go towards that, right? That's the gift that you've been given to you know, work your way towards that, and you're driving towards that, right? That's Mars. So it's kind of like double obsession. You're obsessed to create balance and justice and relationship, and you're also, you know, driven to create that foundation in yourself, right? That's that Mars and Aries. But you create that base, right, from your friends from childhood possibly, or for people that are impulsive or people that push through to show you how to do, right? And now we're coming to that 12th house, right, which is ruled by Mars. So that Mars in Aries is one of the keys to her, you know, subconscious, to her locked away self, right? To the things that she knows that are valuable, because she is valuable. That's where her sun is, right? Even though it's not in Taurus, it's there in the 12th, and she might feel that she is not in space and time with everybody else, but you are there, right? So it's 12th house is co-ruled by Venus, and that Venus in the first house is about communication. So if you want to know where you are, Rebecca, if you want to know what you're thinking about, or what you've processed, or where your emotions are, or why you're talking about certain things, how you feel about what you're saying, right? Whether you feel good about what you're saying or not is going to be the gauge. So it's an external gauge. So it's very exposing, but you understand how that feels, right? There's a letting go of the ego, and for an Aries, that, you know, for 12th house Aries, that may be kind of rough, but your momentum is in all of these things is what's going to be the game changer, right? So, you know, in the 12th house, the moon, there's a lot of emotions there, but they are emotions about value, right? So the divine, the creator, whoever it is you want to think put you here, yourself, he has put those there for a reason, for a purpose, so that you can see your way in your daily life, so that you can see your way through these various relationships and through your career and through the rest of your life, so that you can be a gift to the world, but a gift to yourself first, right? A gift to your, I guess, reclaiming your childhood, to reclaiming that innocence that you had, to, you know, those things are powerful, and you can have them. You can, but, you know, driving directly at things isn't always the best way. It does take, you know, focus and it takes, momentum to do those things. But with spirit, you have to back up, you have to let go. And when you do, that's when the magic happens. And you know this, right? So guys, thank you so much. I know this reading is really long, but there were a lot of things I felt like I needed to go into from other readings and stuff. Rebecca, again, sorry for the delay and probably one of the reasons for the really long reading. So guys, if anybody that's still listening other than Rebecca, thank you. You can reach me on TikTok at North Node Astrology, as well as through these readings that I've got here on YouTube and on Facebook. And as always, love you guys.